Gently close your eyes. Do deep breathing. We'll chant Om once together. Synchronize the chanting of Om with your exhalation. Breathe in. Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditamastu ma vitvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Gently open your eyes. We'll chant from verses 61 to 65 of chapter 2. Tani sarvani sanyamya,
Tani sarvani sanyamya,
yukta asita matparaha,
Yukta asita matparaha,
vashe hi yasyendriyani,
Vashe hi yasyendriyani,
tasya prajna pratisthita,
Tasya prajna pratisthita,
dhyayato vishayan pumsaha,
Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha,
Sangasteshu pajayate,
Sangasteshu pajayate,
Sangat sanjayate kamaha,
Sangat sanjayate kamaha,
Kamat krodho bhijayate,
Kamat krodho bhijayate,
Krodhat bhavati sammohaha,
Krodhat bhavati sammohaha,
Sammohat smriti vibhramaha,
Sammohat smriti vibhramaha,
Smriti bhramshat buddhinashaha,
Smriti bhramshat buddhinashaha,
Buddhinashat pranashyati,
Buddhinashat pranashyati,
Ragadvesha vimuktaistu,
Ragadvesha vimuktaistu,
Vishayanindriyaischaran,
Vishayanindriyaischaran,
Atmavasyairvidheyatma,
Atmavasyairvidheyatma,
Prasadamadigacchati,
Prasadamadigacchati,
Prasade sarvadukhanam,
Prasade sarvadukkhanam,
हानिरस्योपजायते
हानिरस्योपजायते
प्रसन्नचेतसो ह्याशु
प्रसन्नचेतसो ह्याशु
बुद्धिः पर्यवतिष्ठते
बुद्धिः पर्यवतिष्ठते.
Hari Om, and a very good day to all of you. So, we have been getting into the depth of verse 64, where he is actually giving various sadhana tips, various sadhana principles. Now, if you practice all these principles in your life, you will evolve spiritually. See, when we say sadhana, there are two kinds of sadhana. One is that sadhana which you do when you're all alone by yourself. That is what is a Yoga Sankirtan sadhana which I'm asking you to do every day. So when you're all alone by yourself, you do the Yoga Sankirtan sadhana. That is a sadhana to raise your consciousness. Of course, your ability to raise your consciousness will depend on what level of spiritual growth you are in right now. But everyone will have a certain capacity. That is why we have these advanced courses, the empowerment programs. When a master conducts an empowerment program, what he does is that he increases the base meditative capacity of the student. So the difference between healing and empowerment is when mere healing is given, that itself is no doubt a great help. It's an external help. The higher energy, higher Shakti is given so that you will be able to face the challenges, whatever be the challenge. But empowerment is a process by which the base meditative level of the student increases, which means the capacity to raise one's consciousness will also increase. Now, that is one type of sadhana. The other type is when you interact in the world. Now, whatever efforts you're putting in when you're all alone by yourself should not go waste. If all the factors, there is various factors in the world, if they come and completely disturb you, if they pull all your energies away, then what will happen is you will be building your spirituality when you're alone, when you do the personal Yoga Sankirtan sadhana, but you will be frittering away all that energy when you're interacting with the world. So when you are interacting with people, not only with people, when you're getting into various activities of your life, that's what I mean by interaction. So how do you do those things? How do you perform your actions? How do you relate to people? How do you acquire wealth? How do you progress in your career? How do you do everything in your life as a support to the main sadhana which you're doing. That is, instead of those activities pulling you away from spirituality, how do you streamline them so that they don't fritter away the spiritual energy which you're building through personal sadhana? That is the question. So all these sadhana tips, the sadhana principles which are being given, are meant to achieve this. So when he says free from likes and dislikes, now when you follow that principle, now in every aspect of your life, you will ensure that the disturbing factors of the mind are being handled. See, when you contact the world, various factors actually come and disturb your mind. You cannot avoid those factors. Some people ask me, they say, how do I get an environment which is completely disturbance free? It is impossible. Those of you who have not come to the Himalayas, you think that if you go away to the Himalayas, everything will be very peaceful. Not necessarily. There also, many people I know complain of mosquitoes. It's very, very cold. So many other kinds of challenges are there. See, to go for one day and come is a different matter, but to stay in a place like that for a prolonged period of time and do the sadhana is not a joke. So the type of challenge may change, but challenges are there everywhere. If you go to the forest, now see, if you're doing your sadhana at home, it's a secure place, security is there. With a peaceful mind, you can do your sadhana. If you go to the forest and do your sadhana, it is a highly insecure place. So you will have to look into all that. So a disturbance-free world, a problem-free world is a utopia. It's not possible at all. So when you are contacting the world, how do you approach each and every experience so that instead of that experience taking you away from your spiritual path, how can that experience enrich your wisdom? How can that experience support your spiritual growth? That is what is the second aspect of sadhana, the second type of sadhana. So throughout the Bhagavad Gita, throughout any scripture, you will find these two kinds of sadhanas will always be given. And even when you go to a master, on one hand, he'll give you the sadhana, personal sadhana which you need to do, with which you can actually grow spiritually. You can become self-sufficient. If you don't do that, then the desired results will not come. On the other hand, whenever you have a problem, whenever you have an issue, the master will go on giving the practical guidance so that you don't allow that problem or issue to completely topple you. You don't allow that challenge to dissipate all your energies. And if at all, even if the dissipation happens, how do you quickly rise? How do you come back onto the track? So these sadhana principles which we are seeing, we are going into the real depth and eking out those principles. Now these are extremely useful to you. See, every sadhana principle which he is giving is like, it's priceless. Now then the question will come in your mind, Now, how do I remember all these in practice? See, it's not necessary to remember each and every aspect of the wisdom which he is giving. First, whatever inspires you, you take that up and start practicing. If you think that the first part, that is the likes and dislikes part, if you are unable to follow, then practice the second part. You just have to make a start. The most interesting thing is when you make a start, the entire nature comes and helps you. The Guru Shakti will start flowing into your life and it will start guiding you. So when you face these kinds of challenges, normally speaking, when your mind is not trained, what will happen is you will be very, very reactive. When I was answering that question last week about anger, I was explaining this point. So when something goes wrong outside, let us say somebody is being unfair to you, injustice is happening, whatever it is, when you are in a reactive mode, the mind will immediately get upset. It will get angry. It's not only anger. You may get into depression. I know many people, when others are behaving badly with them, they get into a lot of sorrow and depression when they are unable to hit back, Hit back in the sense when they are unable to squarely face the person, then they suppress everything and it turns into sorrow and depression. So some kind of negative emotion will be there. That is being reactive. Now what has happened is, due to this long-standing habit of being reactive, now a situation has come where we think that it is very natural to be reactive. In that question also it was mentioned, isn't it natural to get angry? It's a very, very valid question. Why you feel that way is because this wisdom has been completely lost, this ancient wisdom. In the good old days, this was taught to every youngster, every boy and every girl used to gain this wisdom before the age of 17, 18. I'm not saying they'll become enlightened by that age, but they'll gain all the practical wisdom necessary to face life. And then they used to go and live their lives and also practice the higher wisdom and take guidance whenever required, that is periodically from the teacher, and also evolve spiritually. But in the long lapse of time, this ancient wisdom is lost today. So in the education system, we are not being taught how to gain mastery over our own minds. That aspect of education itself is not there. The education system today is only about getting informed about the various worldly knowledges. But you, the individual who is going to contact the world, how do you gain mastery over yourself? How do you increase your positive energy reserve? How do you become mentally strong? How do you gain clarity of vision? All these things are not taught. The spiritual wisdom is completely lost. So since this is lost, the habit of being reactive has become prevalent. I'm saying right from young age. So whenever you are into a particular situation for a long period of time, then you will get acclimatized to it, you will get used to it. That will look natural for you. See, supposing a person is staying in an unclean environment. Now, you are staying in a very clean environment. So you go to that person's place. And when you see that it's very, very unclean, then you tell that person, listen, things are not okay. You need to clean your room. It's very untidy. Now, that person will not react to whatever you're saying, because for many years that person has been in that kind of a lifestyle. So what is uncomfortable for you, he feels quite comfortable. That is comfortable in the sense he has got acclimatized to it. He's got used to that lifestyle. So he will say it is very natural, dirt is very natural. Why do you need to clean things? So unless and until you gain this higher wisdom, the possibility of being not reactive, non-reactive, rather than being reactive, the possibility of choosing your reaction and choosing your response to a given situation, to a given challenge, that possibility itself will not, will be inconceivable. So Newton has said in the laws of motion, no, what is inertia? When an object is at a state of rest. That is one definition of inertia. The other definition is, or if an object is in a state of constant motion, then also it is inertia. That is without any improvement. Let us say an object is continuously moving. Let's take, just for argument's sake, a surface which is frictionless, and you push an object into that in that surface, and it keeps moving at a particular speed. When there is no friction, it will continue to move in the same speed. Newton says that is also inertia only. Rest is also inertia. State of constant motion is also inertia. So when you are mechanically leading your life in a reactive way, without any improvement, that is also inertia only. It will look natural. See, when I say inertia here, I am talking of spiritual inertia. Of course, Einstein was talking about the physical aspect. I am just drawing a parallel. I am taking it as an example to explain this principle at the spiritual level. So many births have been taken by you. See, this human birth has not been obtained at one go. You have crossed through the births of many other creatures also. You know, even when in the womb, when a lady conceives, and the embryo, the various stages the embryo goes through in the womb, you know, all those stages nowadays, the ultra scan has been taken and we can see at every stage the embryo resembles some other creature. Like at one stage it looks like a tadpole, at one stage it looks like some other animal. It's very interesting. It almost seems to give a kind of a preview. You've gone through all these stages and finally, you know, you look like a human being. You become, when I say look like, you become a human being. The very many stages which an embryo goes through in the womb is nothing but a kind of a preview of whatever has happened in the past births. And finally, the human birth happens. So since you have come from the lower creatures, we have evolved as a human being, naturally those traits will continue to be there. The one of the traits of an animal, for example, if you take, is that an animal cannot control his or her emotions. When I say control, there is nothing called mastery. An animal is 100% emotional. It is a human being alone who has the capacity to question the emotions, to gain mastery over the emotions, to evolve to further higher consciousness. So since you have come from the lower creatures, a part of that will still continue. That is what you're calling as natural, just being reactive to situations. See, if you give food to a dog, the dog will be happy. If you don't give food, the dog will not be happy. Any creature you take, whatever it requires, you need to give. Otherwise, it cannot be happy. It's only a human being who has the capacity to decide how to respond to a situation. When you're driving a car, if a buffalo is in front on the road, you know exactly how the buffalo will react. What will be its reaction? Nothing. It will not move. It will just stay put. Supposing a camel is there in front of you on the road, how will a camel react? You can clearly say, in the Middle Eastern countries, you know, at high speed when they go on the highway, sometimes the camels, they just freeze due to fear. A buffalo doesn't move because of its tamas, inertia. A camel just gets frozen. It stays put because of the fear. Many accidents have happened because of that. If a dog is there in front of the car on the road, you know exactly how that dog will behave. But if a human being is there standing, can you really predict and say how that human being is going to behave? Is he going to continue standing there? Is he going to jump out at the last minute? What is he going to do? We can never ever predict. Why? Because a human being has this choice of action. So whatever we are actually studying here, week after week, whatever principles I'm expounding to you, they are not some unnatural principles. They are not principles to take you to some unnatural state. This is what is natural for you as a human being. But unfortunately, since this wisdom has got lost and you have developed a long-standing habit of being reactive, you're thinking that that is only natural. If any problem happens, some negative emotion like anger or fear has to come within me. Isn't that being human, they say? No. See, the answer is yes and no. If you have not trained yourself, the answer is yes. But if you gain this wisdom and do the sadhana, then there is another way of living. That way by which you choose every response of yours. So that is why I keep saying that this wisdom is a necessity in everyone's life. We can't even say this is very useful or this is important and all that. If this is, like how we require oxygen to breathe, similarly you require this wisdom in order to be very, very peaceful in life. In order to achieve success in whatever you're doing, in order to be very peaceful in life. These are the two things which you are seeking. This wisdom helps you. Once you gain this wisdom, once you get established in the higher, then you will find that this way of living becomes natural to you. When a challenge confronts you, you will not get upset by that. Your mind will no longer be reactive. That is only a Videya Atma. Videya Atma means one whose mind is not reactive. The one who has achieved self-mastery. That's how I've put the translation. So what is this self-mastery? It's mastering one's reactions to various situations. And unless you master your reactions, you will not be able to choose your response to any given situation. When you have gained mastery over your reactions and responses in the world, you can achieve anything which you want. That gives you enormous power. When your own reactions are not under your control, when another person's behavior is determining what your mental reaction is going to be, then you're being controlled by that person. You're being controlled by the world. It is the opposite of Videya Atma. Instead of you being the master, you become a slave to various situations in life. Remember, whenever a person makes you angry, that person has won that battle. If a person is rude to you, he wants you to get affected. Again, don't confuse this, that is, don't confuse a state of not being angry with passivity. I am not saying you should be passive and allow the other person to continue to be rude to you. That is not what I am saying. When it comes to actions, whatever corrective actions are, you should take. But whether you will take the right corrective action or not will depend upon how agitated your mind is. When your mind is agitated, you cannot take decisions properly. So the entire confusion in spirituality is between action and attitude. Whenever they talk of peace, whenever they talk of not getting angry, they mean the attitude internally. Don't get angry in a reactive way, without your control. But if once you master your reactions, if a situation requires where the other person will understand only the language of sternness, you have to be stern there. Nothing wrong with that. That is what Krishna is trying to teach Arjuna. He says the situation demands where you need to fight the battle. The Kauravas are not able to understand any other language. They tried to reason out to Duryodhana. Krishna himself went as a peace messenger. He tried to reason out to Duryodhana. He tried to appeal to his emotions. Every possible way he tried. But Duryodhana refused to understand. So then Krishna said, I think you can understand only the language of war. So as a final step, he is asking Arjuna to fight in the battle. So that itself shows that when it comes to action, whatever corrective actions you need to take, you have to take. But internally, you should be very, very peaceful. Whatever is happening in the world, it does not matter. But why should you lose your sleep? Why should you lose your peace of mind over it? What are you achieving by that? Is that helping you? No. Will it help the situation outside? Will it help you to handle the situation outside? No. It will rather be a block, a deterring factor. So, Vidheyatma, one who has achieved self-mastery. So, we were seeing some of the dimensions of Vidheyatma. Last week I had given you one dimension. That is, Videya means that which ought to be done, referring to duties. So you have various duties to perform in your life. Last week I had given you a small homework. I hope all of you would have done that homework. That is, take up a few roles of your life and fix your duties there. See what are all the various duties you need to perform. You require courage in order to do this kind of a self-examination. Because in most of the roles you will not be doing your duties. So it requires courage to accept that. If you are avoiding that sadhana, it means you are afraid to change. You are afraid to get transformed. Any change that is associated with a certain amount of fear, because you have to move from a state of whatever is comfortable for you to a totally new state. So that fear, that hesitation will be there. But you need to conquer that. So fix your roles in life. As a husband, what duties do I have in that role? Husband is a role, for example. As a wife, I have various duties. See, in each of these roles, there are two things. One is what we call as rights, whatever your rights are. The other is whatever your duties are. We are constantly focusing on our rights. There is nothing wrong with it. But when your entire focus is only on what are my rights, what will happen is over a period of time, you will lose your peace of mind. Because life is always a give and take. So what these great masters are suggesting is, instead of looking merely at your rights, start seeing what are my duties. Let me do my duties to perfection. When you do your duties to perfection, then whatever rights you have will automatically come to you. This is a law. If it does not come, you will be in a position to make it come to you. The problem today is we don't do our part, but we only demand. This is my right, we say. And an employee who puts his heart and soul in his work, if he focuses on exceeding the management's expectations, then whatever rewards he needs to get, the rights he will acquire. And if at all he doesn't acquire for some reason, he will have the strength to go and ask for it. But when we don't do our part properly in life and only demand our rights, then neither will you get your whatever is due to you, nor will you be peaceful. So it's a beautiful sadhana, Vidheya, focusing on what you ought to do in life. So this is an antidote to the likes and dislikes. So whatever you like to do or dislike to do is one thing. But what you ought to do, your duties, is another thing. Sometimes the likes and dislikes will blend with your duties. In those areas you will have no problems. But sometimes you will find that there will be a clash between the likes and dislikes and the duties. Now there you need to use your willpower and do your duties. The more you're firm, the more strong you'll become. And then the training is, see, that is not, videya means doing what you ought to do in life, no doubt, but not doing your duties mechanically, but enjoying your duties, training your mind to such an extent where you start liking whatever you do. That is the Ichha Shakti. Every duty which you take up, every responsibility which you take up should give you immense enjoyment. Otherwise, life will become a drudgery. Why is it that life is a drudgery for most people today? Because they have divided life into several parts. And one part they call it enjoyment, and another part is work, duties and all that. Which means whenever they're going to do duties, they're not going to enjoy. So in spirituality, we mix everything. Enjoyment itself is your first duty. That is, enjoying everything which you do in life itself is your spiritual duty. So videya, doing what ought to be done, not as a drudgery, but with full passion, full enjoyment. Once you train your mind to do the right things in life and also enjoy doing the right things in life, nobody needs to come and tell you. You don't require any external motivation. So it's a beautiful dimension, videya. Start practicing that. Then the second dimension of videya. Videya means being obedient. So the mind of a spiritually evolved person is completely obedient to him or her. Today, your mind is not obedient to you. It does not listen to you. You want to do something, but the mind wants to do something else. It constantly moves away from whatever activity you choose. There is always this clash, between you and the mind. It is very interesting. Many a times when people act in an impulsive way and then they later on regret, they say, I shouldn't have done this. Now, in spite of knowing that you shouldn't have done something, why is it that you do? Because the mind was not obedient. It pulled you away. So, Videyatma means one who has made his mind completely obedient to him. See, I have used the word self-mastery. Now, different aspects of self-mastery is what I am giving you, because all those different aspects of self-mastery together is what defines a Videyatma. That word Videya is very powerful. So, the mind spins various moods, good moods and bad moods. And your moods actually take you on a trip, mental trip. You decide to do something, you sit there, but your mind is in a bad mood, let us say. Whatever be the reason, somebody has insulted you, or sometimes for no reason you may get into a bad mood. Whatever be the reason, the mind is in a bad mood. Now, if your mind is obedient, you tell the mind, okay, whatever be your mood, now I want you to focus here, completely focus. Immediately the mind will listen. Then you are a Videha Atma. But if you tell your mind now focus here, but the mind does not listen to you, it does not change its mood. Rather, it continues to indulge in whatever it is doing. Then your mind is not obedient to you. I am only giving you a practical example to illustrate what it means by this dimension, being obedient. So how is it that a Videha Atma has made his mind obedient to him? That also we'll see. That is a sadhana tip, He is obedient to his conscience. Therefore, his mind also becomes very obedient to him. See, whatever you practice only you can make the other person practice. Supposing you want your children to, let us say, wake up early and do their exercises. Just an example I am giving. Now, if you are sleeping late, if you are very lazy, now how can you communicate to the child that he should get up early, he should not be lazy? Impossible. Whatever you practice, that alone you can make the other person practice. What you do is generally you don't practice something, but you go on lecturing to the other person and you want the other person to practice that. It will never work. Why is it that when a master gives a principle that goes deep into your subconscious mind? Because he practices everything. After he practices only, he preaches. So whatever you are practicing, you can make the other person practice. You can influence the other person to that extent. So the influence, your influence over the other person is directly dependent upon what kind of, what is the quality of your living. Are you practicing those principles or not? So that is why I tell parents, what you're verbally communicating to the children actually mean nothing. What you are is what is communicating. When you go to a master, you try to impress with words. All those things do not work because he is able to see what you are essentially. He doesn't even need to interact. If he just sits and gets connected at the subtle level, he can feel the energy, and then that energy can be decoded. Exactly what this person, what are the kinds of thoughts he or she is generating. Everything becomes very clear. The master may do it or not do it, that's a different matter because he's got so many other higher things to do. But I'm saying that capacity is there. So yet what we try to do in life is always we try to influence others without practicing those principles. Now the same rule is applicable with your mind also. Your mind is also like a child. The mind is very innocent. Whatever inputs you give, the mind is going to accept. When I say mind, I mean the mind in its entirety. That is the subconscious mind, the deeper conscious mind, all the layers of the mind put together. So if you want to influence the mind, now first you need to practice that. Then only you will have the conviction, that pran shakti, that energy will be there when you tell it to your mind. Just as when you tell to your child something, practice this. If you have practiced that, if you are established in that quality, then when you just suggest itself, that will have so much of energy. So when will the mind start listening to you? If you have practiced listening to your own conscience. When you obediently follow your conscience, then you get the power to subdue your mind. If you don't follow your conscience, see, the conscience in you constantly tells you what is the higher and what is the lower. That's why in the previous lecture I was talking about willpower. Now if you practice developing your willpower, it will be easy to practice this quality, this dimension of videya, which is following your conscience. So your conscience constantly tells you this is what is higher and this is what is lower. Now you will want to you will gravitate towards the lower because it will be enticing, it will give you an immediate pleasure. But if you apply your willpower and if you follow your conscience, over a period of time, you will find that your mind will start following you. You know, I have seen this. Whatever a leader does, so will the followers do. Actually, that is one of the principles which is given in the Bhagavad Gita. Yadyada charati shreshtaha tattat itara janaha. Means whatever a shreshtaha, a leader does, so will the followers do. So if the leader of, if a CEO of in an office, if he is punctual, if he is disciplined, his team also will become punctual. They will follow his route. He doesn't need to say much. And to those people who are unable to grasp due to tamas, if he tells, it will be very effective. But if the CEO himself is indisciplined, and if he is telling everybody, no, you all have to be disciplined, now that will not work. So whatever you want your mind to absorb, now start living it first. You want your mind to be obedient to you. Then first you be obedient to that factor which is higher within you. Be obedient to your own conscience. So willpower and following your conscience actually go together. When it comes to worldly transactions, we use the word conviction or willpower and all that. When it comes to the higher, we say following your conscience. It all means one and the same. The direction is different. So if you say, I'll be there at 9 a.m. No, be there at 9 a.m. I'm going to watch this at 7 a.m. every Sunday. Watch this program, this discourse at 7 a.m. It's a small practice, but it goes a long way in gaining complete mastery over your own mind. So this is the second dimension, obedient. The mind is completely obedient. When your mind becomes 100% obedient, then you're 100% videyatma. Which means that person is following his or her conscience 100%. That is the hidden message there. Beautiful principle, you know. So number one, doing whatever you ought to do in life. And number two, obedient. That is, making your mind obedient, not by force. See, whenever you forcefully try to make a person do something, that will not be effective. That person may do for a while, but the moment you take your eyes off that person will again do whatever he or she wants to do. It's the same thing with the mind. When you try to force the mind will rebel. Whereas when you follow your conscience, when you are completely obedient to your conscience, then you don't need to force the mind. Rather, you will inspire the mind to start listening to whatever you're saying. Because what you're saying will have that power, will have that Shakti. Today, whatever you're saying, whatever you're deciding, that does not have that power. That energy is not there. Therefore, the mind is not following that. So this is a technique, this is a sadhana by which you inspire the mind and bring the mind in line, rather than forcing the mind. In spirituality, forcing is considered as a negative thing. Rather, you should act out of inspiration. So that is the second dimension. Then the third dimension of Videya. What is Videya? Videya means being dependent. Now, what do we mean by being dependent? That is, being a servant. Like, a servant in the sense one who is completely dependent. Now, this may be totally confusing for you, because all along we have said you should become independent. Now suddenly, Vidheyatma means one who is dependent. But the translation is one who has achieved self-mastery. Self-mastery means one who has become independent. So what does this mean? A Vidheyatma is one who has become 100% independent of the world for his happiness. How? Because he has become 100% dependent on the infinite, on God for his or her happiness. So when we talk from the world's point of view, we say he is a master. But does he consider himself as a master? No way. He always considers himself as a servant to the infinite. Even in the Bible it is said, no, thy will be done. Thy will be done means whatever your will is, the will of the infinite, let that be done. That is the surrender. So when we use the word, this word, becoming a master, that can give an ego boost to some people. They start considering themselves as masters, as someone who is superior to others. No. A true master, that is, see, when we say a master, it is from a world's point of view. The world calls him a master. But how does he consider himself? He only considers himself as a servant of the infinite. He is completely dependent on the infinite for his strength. The source of his happiness, the source of his strength is the higher, is the infinite. So he does not consider himself as a master. He is very, very down to earth. Even saying humble is not a correct word. See, humility is as a practice is being given. But a master is not even humble, because see, humility has no meaning without arrogance. It's opposite of arrogance. Now, a master is neither arrogant nor is he humble. He is just whatever he is. See, for example, if you take a nightingale, now the nightingale is singing. Now, is a nightingale arrogant? Oh, I sing very well. No. Now, is a nightingale humble? No. You can't say a nightingale is arrogant. You can't say a nightingale is humble. It just has a particular nature, and it is expressing itself. You know, there was a master who was giving a discourse, and he was saying that truth cannot be communicated. This great wisdom cannot be communicated. Only indications can be given, and you need to do the sadhana. That's what he was trying to explain. You need to do the sadhana and experience things. Master can help, but direct communication is not possible. Whatever you are understanding is only a small portion. The rest you need to do sadhana. So when he was saying this, one person asked him this question. Then why are you giving a discourse, sir? When you yourself are saying these things cannot be communicated, why are you talking? You know, the answer which the master gave, a very inspiring answer. He said, you cannot ask a rose, why are you blooming, sir? You cannot go to a rose and ask, why are you blooming? There is no ego, there is no sense of I-ness. Whatever its nature is, it just expresses. So, Vidheyatma is one who has got connected with the infinite completely. So, in that sense, he is dependent on the infinite for his strength. He is dependent on the infinite for happiness. And when you become dependent on the infinite completely, the most interesting part is the mind will become self-dependent. That is, it will become independent when it comes to the world. Independent in the sense, independent for its happiness. Automatically. The mind will become untouched. Today, you are dependent on the world for your happiness. You are dependent on the world for your strength. You are putting all your efforts in that direction. The result is you will become more and more dependent only. See, when you are dependent on something, whatever the nature of that something, that object is, that is what is going to determine your strength now, your power now. So if you are dependent on finite things, now your power also will be finite and limited. Your happiness also will be finite and limited. But if you are dependent on the infinite, then your powers become infinite, your happiness becomes infinite. In every sense of the term, you become one with the infinite. So the sadhana of Vidheyatma is in dropping the dependence on the world. How? By becoming dependent on the infinite. As Shakespeare says, there is a divinity that shapes our ends. You know, you can do everything. For example, you can take a seed, you can put a seed in the perfect soil, and then you can water it. You can, give it all the nourishment, required sunlight, everything you give. But can you actually make the seed, can you make the seed into a plant and tree? When you do all these things, there is a higher law which is beyond human control that takes over. If you just see how many processes are going on within our body, just the fact that you are breathing in, you're taking in all the air, the lungs are doing the filtering, it takes the oxygen. And then if you take the circulation, if you take each and every aspect of how your body is functioning, an entire lifetime is not enough just to study what are all the various things which are happening in the body. We are blissfully unaware of all these things. So there is that higher power beyond our control. That is what he's calling, Shakespeare says, there is a divinity that shapes our ends. We have to play our part in life. In the Bhagavad Gita he says, you have the right to action but not to the fruit thereof. So you play your part and then the supreme power will function. There is a saying, you do your best, God will do the rest. If you can just follow this principle, your whole life will get transformed. See, the moment we talk of the infinite presence, God will do the rest, there is a general tendency to stop your efforts. That is why that saying is a beautiful saying. You do your best, whatever part you have to play, whatever role you've been given in life. Now you give your best of efforts and then God will do the rest. That second portion will give you that peace of mind. A Vidheyatma is one who has gained control over his life not by wanting to control others, but by becoming one with the infinite. The more you want to control others, the less control actually you will have. When you become one with the infinite, when you focus all your energies on the infinite, then you will not want to control the other person. Then the other person will automatically, he or she will be drawn towards you. Like how an iron piece gets attracted to the magnet. A master is one who becomes like a magnet. He does not go behind people and tell them, do this, do that. No. He actually is one, he has invested all his energies in becoming one with the infinite. He is completely dependent on the infinite, not on anyone outside, not on anything outside for his happiness. So the ego wants to control things externally, whereas the conscience understands that nothing can be controlled externally because there is a divine law functioning. That's what there is a divinity that shapes our ends. Tamil Siddhar, he said, Avanindri oru anuvum asayad, which means without that supreme presence, not even an atom will be able to move, will be able to vibrate. What a powerful statement. So when that supreme presence is there in your life, you are just blinding yourself. You're closing your spiritual eyes and your ego becomes very powerful in the sense it starts manifesting and it wants to control others. It wants to do so many things. That way, slowly, you will lose control over your own life. give the control of your life to the real owner. Your role is just to play your part, whatever your duties are and everything. That is where your effort should be. But the control, give it to the real owner. When I say control, control of your life. What you do is you keep the control with yourself. How the ego functions is, it wants to control everyone, everything. But efforts, you give it to God. You don't put any efforts. Now you need to reverse that process. Nothing in the world can actually give you happiness. Acquire anything which you want in the world, but happiness is something which is there within you. It is there in that infinite source within you. So the more you get connected there, the more power you will get to attract things in life. This is only incidental. A master does not get connected to the infinite because he wants to attract things. That is still a very low level of spirituality. I am only saying incidentally that happens. So the mind becomes completely dependent on him because he is dependent on the infinite. So Vidheyatma, the one who has achieved self-mastery. In all these three dimensions, what happens to him? He says he attains peace. Prasadam adhigacchati. So peace is what you're looking for ultimately in life. You know, many a times people come and tell me, sir, I just wish that, I can just take a holiday and go to some place which is quiet and, where no noise is there. I asked them why. So that I can experience peace, they say. That place is actually within you only. You are looking for external quietude. That is never possible. That quietude is within you. And when can you experience that quietude, that peace, that calmness? It is when you practice all this. It is when you become a Vidheyatma. To the extent you become a Vidheyatma, to that extent you will be peaceful. Prasadam adhigacchati. So you are looking for peace everywhere. You are looking for peace actually everywhere else except where it is, and that is within you. It is so amusing. See, it's like you want to purchase something. Now, if you just come out of the house, right in front of you there is a shop. In that shop, that object is available. But you are not looking in that shop. You are going everywhere, to every nook and corner of your city, and then you are going to the neighboring cities. Everywhere you are going looking for that object. When somebody does that, you will laugh at that person. You will say, it is right here, and where are you going? So prasadam means that peace. Actually, next week I'll explain this prasadam a bit. There are wonderful dimensions related to prasadam. The yogic approach, through the yogic approach, when you penetrate that, just by getting to know what are the different dimensions of this word prasadam, you start acquiring those qualities. It's very, very interesting. Whatever you admire, whatever you start appreciating, slowly, slowly, you will start absorbing all those qualities. That is why we are studying the different dimensions of these words. Just as it is suggested, always look at the good qualities of others. The reason is, when you keep looking at the goodness of others, even the worst of people will have a few good qualities. Now, it is a question of what you are relating to. Are you choosing to relate to the positive or negative? When you keep looking at the good qualities of others, slowly, slowly you will also acquire goodness within you. When you keep looking at only the negative aspects of others, slowly, slowly you will become a negative person. So why are we studying about Vidheyatma? Why are we studying about prasadam, the state of peace, sthita prajna? Again and again and again, in different angles, we are looking at the same thing. Because the more you do that, the more you soak your mind in these higher principles, slowly, slowly, you will start acquiring all of that. You will start living them. So free from likes and dislikes, but moving among sense objects with senses controlled by the self, the one who has achieved self-mastery, Vidheyatma, prasadam adhigacchati. He attains peace. And once he becomes very peaceful inside, now he will start radiating that peace. Everything which he does will give peace to others also. When he talks, that will calm the minds of others. When he doesn't talk, just in his presence, others will become peaceful. The greatest service which you can do to the world is to just become peaceful. So we'll stop with that today. Next week, we will get into the depth of prasadam a little bit and then go to the remaining verses. Last week I was answering a question. 2-3 questions were asked and I had answered the first question. So the remaining questions we'll take up now. Amrita had asked this question. So the first question was about anger, which I think I covered last week. That is, don't mix action with attitude. So anger is not the only way to handle injustice. You can still handle injustice in a calm way. So that is something which you need to understand. The second question is, when we talk of sorrow as a negative emotion, then we have to keep away from people who are sorrowful. Isn't that unjust? People need others most when they are in sorrow, isn't it? Again, a very interesting question. When we say sorrow is a negative emotion, see, first of all, I want you to understand this. Negative, positive, we are not talking about morally negative or positive. See, sometimes when we use the word negative, now that itself has a negative connotation. What it means is harmful to you or beneficial to you. That's all we are examining. So is sorrow harmful to you or is it beneficial to you? Definitely, when you are sorrowful, you will not be peaceful. So in that sense, it is negative. Now, what you're saying is, when somebody is in sorrow, we need to avoid that. But isn't it that they require others' help most? See, you need to avoid a person who is sorrowful when you yourself are not strong. You said, doesn't that person require help when that person is sorrowful? Yes. But when will you be in a position to help a sorrowful person? You tell me. What is the criteria? If a person is very much sorrowful, if a person is crying, now when can you go and help the person to come out of the sorrow? If you are radiating positive energy, if you are radiating peace and happiness, then you will be able to transfer that to the other person. If you yourself are caught up with negative emotions like sorrow and all that, then when you go, how will you be able to help the other person? Rather, earlier it was one problem, that person was sorrowful. Now if you also go there, your sorrow will affect that person's sorrow will affect you. It will have what they call a synergy, a synergistic effect. Synergy means like 1 plus 1 is 2. This is normal mathematics. Synergy is something like 1 and 1. When you join, it can become 11 also. So that is called synergy. So your sorrow and the other person's sorrow, is it going to help each other? Rather, your sorrow will pull the other person down, that other person's sorrow will pull you down, both will sink. So what is this ancient wisdom saying? That's what we saw today, prasadam. I said, no, the greatest service is to become peaceful. When you become peaceful, when you start radiating that peace and positive energy, then that will have a positive influence over others. So just by going and advising others and all that, it will not help the other person to come out of all the problems. You require to be like a lighthouse, a pillar of strength. This wisdom makes you a pillar of strength. Till that time, when you see somebody sorrowful, you can suggest to that person, you can introduce this to that person so that that person can start doing sadhana. Actually, when a person is sorrowful, he or she does not require others' help in terms of mental solace. That is only temporary help. The real solution for that person is going to the root cause of that sorrow and removing that sorrow from its depth, from its roots. And that can happen only if that person does sadhana. So till you grow and get established in the higher state, you can introduce this to the sadhana to the other person. That is what will truly help that person to come out of whatever be the negative situation in which he or she is caught up. So when it was suggested that avoid negative situations, that is not a permanent solution, it's not possible fully 100%, but to the extent you can, it is because just as a plant requires protection when it is in the early stage of growth. But once it has become a banyan tree, now it is able to give shade to others. It doesn't require any more protection. So you should increase your positivity to such an extent where anybody comes and throws sorrow or any negative emotion to you, you will transmute everything. The fire of your tapas should burn up all that, and you should still be able to radiate positive energy. So that is why the greatest service which you can do to humanity is to gain this wisdom and transform yourself. And the more peaceful, the more happy, the more dynamic, the more strong you become, the more will be your capacity to help others. A master is one who has become like a banyan tree. Thousands and thousands of people, any number can come and take shade from the tree. So it is a very practical question which Amrita has asked, and that is very much in line with whatever we are doing now, So there is nothing unjust about it. So the best way to help a person is you get transformed in the long run. Till then, if you have it, if you find somebody who is sorrowful or some issue is there, now see whether you can introduce this sadhana to them. Invite them to watch the Sunday discourses. See, when they start soaking themselves in these positive thoughts, automatically they are going to get solutions to their problems. That is the greatest seva you can do. It's karma yoga, service to humanity. Okay. Now the third question is, when we keep away from things that induce negative emotions, it would exclude most objects of art. Art is about rasa, about transferring emotions, and many great books induce sorrow in us. But they, I think, somehow help us understand our sorrow to deal with it. So how can it be bad? But yes, there are some art that induce negative behavior. How can we ensure we are choosing the right art? Thank you, Yogishri. I hope you would kindly answer these questions. It would be a great help professionally also, since I do research in literature. See, this rasa which you're talking about, there is a separate sadhana. It is called Rasa Sadhana. You know, the process of alchemy, converting mercury into gold. It is not merely external. It is converting your energy field from mercury to gold, converting, balancing all your rasas, your emotions, and transmuting the negative rasas to positive. In our ancient wisdom, they have given navarasas, 9 basic emotions. They are only basic emotions like the skeleton, but from there arise many other emotions. And there are specific sadhanas called, it's called the Rasa Sadhana. I will definitely introduce all of you into that aspect of the sadhana also in the advanced courses in the future. It's very, very powerful, because how to transmute your energies. Now, when you talk of art, art is no doubt an expression of your rasa, your emotion. So, art, or from a spiritual point of view, how the spiritual masters used any art is not to get trapped in if a rasa is negative. It is the technique by which you convert the negative rasa into a positive one. It is not only with respect to literature. Any art you take, even martial art, supposing you get angry. Now, how to transmute that anger and fight? How to channelize it in a positive way? That is the Rasa Sadhana. So, if you merely take art for art's sake, then there is no sadhana there. If it is a negative, if it is an expression of negative emotion, it will pull you down. If it is an expression of positive emotion, it may uplift you. But our masters used every aspect of life for spiritual growth. So arts like classical dance, classical music, yoga is also an art only that way. Various art, literature, everything was used by our masters. Chanting is an art, Everything was used to transmute the emotions. So, if you're talking of art per se, without any reference to spirituality, that is just like any other thing which you have in the world. But when you relate it to spirituality, see, we take the negative things and convert it into positive. So why is it that in the Puranic stories, if you take the Ramayana, so much of sorrow is there. You take the Mahabharata, you take all the Puranas, Vishnu Purana, everything. All the emotions will be there. Sorrow will be there, anger will be there, everything. But as you're reading that, with a yogic approach, that Rasa Sadhana, how to convert that, transmute that into positive, will be given. So nothing per se is negative or positive. It is how you use them that matters. Okay, so now we'll do some meditation. Gently close your eyes. Do deep breathing. With every breath, I'm going deeper and deeper into myself. I am not this body. I am not these various emotions and thoughts. I am that Supreme Being. I am one with that infinite. From this moment onwards, I choose to obediently follow my conscience. From this moment onwards, I choose to be completely dependent only on that infinite source, that infinite power for my happiness. I am Swayam Prakashit, self-illuminating. Offer your gratitude to God Supreme. Offer your gratitude to your Guru and all the holy masters. Slowly come back, wriggle your fingers and toes, rub your palms together to create warmth, cup your eyes with the palms, Gently rub your eyes, your cheeks, forehead, top of the head, back of the head. Slowly open your eyes. Welcome back. So we had a very powerful session today. Very, very powerful principles. The three dimensions of Videha, and also the practical application, the sadhana part. So my request to all of you is take up these principles and go on soaking yourself in these principles till they become a part of your life. Like how salt mixes with some liquid which you pour it into. Like that, these principles should get into your system and become a part of you. Till you live these principles, don't leave them. We are studying all this only for one reason, not to appreciate some self-realized person, no, because you have that capacity to become 100% Vidheyatma. It is in your hands. So, do your sadhana regularly and start getting transformed. Okay? We'll meet next week. Thank you very much.